Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is March 1st, the first day of meteorological spring, and you can see here on the infrared satellite imagery that we have a frontal system coming in here, and we've got cold air behind that. We're going to set more cold air up across British Columbia here as we go on in through the weekend into early next week. So you would not know it's the first day of meteorological spring by looking at our forecast coming up for the next week or so. We'll look at those details coming up here in a moment. You can see here, this is the simulated infrared satellite imagery here on the European model. You see the frontal system across the Gulf of Alaska there, and you can see it march across the area, ushering in some cold air here. Then we're going to drop some cold air down across British Columbia. It's going to spawn a low pressure system off our coastline here, giving us some lowland snow potential here as we go on through the period. But we'll have to watch the systems individually as they come at us because it's a very low confidence forecast here, but the threat does exist. Again, as we go on into March, the sun is hanging out for longer. You know, the days are getting longer. That sun is stronger, and it's harder to bring that snow level down to the surface here across the area. But we'll continue to watch that as we go day by day. Big mountain snow is incoming here as we go through the period. And you can see some of the winter storm warnings and advisories in effect. You can see the dense fog advisory across some of eastern Washington. We have that going on across the Puget Sound. Had some freezing fog as well. Woke up to a nice coating of frost here at my house this morning. Taking a look here, day two, as that colder air arrives behind the frontal system, there is a thunderstorm threat for western BC on in through the Washington coastline there. The SPC has picked up on that. This is Seattle for the month of February, where you're at 2.36, about 1.4 below average, but the snow total right at average, 2.2. Not getting the big snowfall amounts, even though we had multiple days so far this season, December, January, and February of snowfall. We're just not getting the big amounts on any individual day. Now, taking a look here, this is the NAM 3KM, and you can see the frontal system arrive, bringing that snowfall to the higher terrain. Then as we go through Thursday afternoon, you can see that snow level start to come down here, especially across the convergence zone, Snohomish, King County up there as we go through Thursday night. By the time we get into Friday morning as well, you can see the snow level pretty low here. Might see some snow mixing in across some of the areas there. More on that here in a moment. Looking at the European 850 millibars here, this is last night's 06Z run, cold air moving down across California there. There comes our frontal system, another shot of cold air, but then you'll notice even more cold air starts to come down. A little bit of Arctic air moving across the Yukon, the British Columbia here as we go on in through Monday morning with the low pressure system off the coastline there. We're going to be flirting with some lowland snow here as we go on in through early next week again, and kind of a nightmare forecast again, as you guys saw last time, that little upper level low that spawned that snowfall mainly north of Seattle up through southwest BC. Southwest BC really the winners out of that little low pressure system there, as they got some pretty good amounts across the area up there. Now, taking a look here, mean sea level pressure. You can see the frontal system arrive. The main low goes up north through Canada here, but then you can see the colder air start to drop down through the Yukon into the British Columbia area here, and it sets up this low pressure system off the coast of Washington there. So we have to watch for that lowland snow potential. Again, it's going to need to fall mainly in the overnight or during the morning hours here for the best chances of accumulating down to the lower elevations. This is looking at yesterday afternoon's European run here. Total snow Kuchera in inches, and you can see the big snowfall coming for some of the mountainous areas of Washington, the higher terrain, and British Columbia highlighted there. But you can see it tries to bring a little bit of low-level snowfall across the area here. I wouldn't get too caught up in the details right now. We'll watch these systems as they come in individually. But a lot of times the models are going to be showing snow accumulating at the surface. This is just not the case. Sometimes you'll see the snow falling, and it's just not accumulating. So it needs to happen at the right time as well. So we'll watch that as we go through the forecast period here. This is looking at 100-meter wind speeds, European model. Here we go with the frontal system going through. You can see it passing down the Washington coast here through the Oregon coast. And then you'll see that convergence zone set up in the wake across western Washington here. Some gusty winds going through eastern Washington as well out of the southwest. But then you'll see this next low pressure system start to drop down off the coastline here as the Arctic air starts to move down across the region. And where this sets up is going to make all the difference on who sees what kind of snow potential here, how much of this cold air will actually get into our region while this moisture is still around. Those are details that we'll work out here over the next few days. This is looking at 500 millibars, somewhere up towards 18,000 feet. There goes that storm system impacting California today. And you can see the frontal system arrive, push through the area here, and and then you see the reinforcing shots of cold air come as we go on into the extended forecast there, kind of leaving this deep trough open over the Pacific Northwest with additional reinforcing shots possible as we go on into the extended forecast as well. Very cold start to March coming up here. No sign of spring yet in our forecast. And you can see here in the National Blended Model, Seattle flirting with freezing and overnight lows here as we go on in through mid-March coming up here. And you can see the chilly highs only into the 40s. Same thing for Portland here too. So any kind of accumulating snowfall is going to have to occur just at the right time, probably in the overnight, early morning hours to really get down towards the lower elevations. Bellingham, similar thing there too as well. Highs only getting up into the 40s. This is Spokane. You can see the chillier overnight lows here. East of the Cascades, of course, going to be colder than places west of the Cascades, which is usually the case. This is Seattle-Tacoma. Now, you see some of these ensemble runs with up over 2 inches of snowfall showing up. But again, you got to take this with a grain of salt. We'll watch this as we get closer. It's going to matter when this snow tries to fall. And of course, the temperatures are going to be extremely marginal for any snowfall potential, but it can still happen this time of year. So we'll watch it closely. This is Portland, kind of showing the similar thing here too as well. Spokane, you've got multiple rounds of snow, but you see you're dealing with less moisture by the time you get east of the Cascades, although you do have colder temperatures. This is looking down towards Eugene. You can see again, it's going to be tough to get this to stick down towards the surface out there or lower elevations, but there is that potential and we'll have to watch it closely. They did get around to snowfall with that last event also down there across some of the southern Willamette Valley. You can see Snohomish County, Painfield, similar scenario showing up there. Vancouver, you can see the overnight lows generally down around freezing here, kind of flirting with that as we go on in through mid-March as well. Now, you can see this moderate avalanche conditions across some of the Cascades, a little bit higher across some of the Cascades of Oregon here coming up, but this will probably change, and we're going to bring some additional snowfall to that with that next frontal system here. So heads up for that if you're headed back off into the backcountry there, and watch out for the wintry driving conditions across the passes. And it sounds like a broken record here, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. You can clearly see the bullseye across a lot of the Pacific Northwest here as you go on in through March 10th. And now taking a look here, this was issued February 27th. You can see the transition out of La Nina here, and some of the models are showing we could be moving into a moderate or even a strong El Nino. It's not out of the question here as we move in towards next fall. And again, we're just kind of watching this as we go, but you can see the climb is now occurring. We're into February here, and we're probably just now starting to come out of La Nina conditions across the Central Pacific. And you can kind of see that trend here as you go through June, July, August, September, October, and you can see the red coming all the way across some of the central equatorial regions here by the time you get into October. So, it's something fun to watch to see how this evolves. But yeah, the forecast has been doing pretty well so far. So El Nino likely on its way here, folks, as we go on in towards next fall. This was issued February 9th. We've talked about this before, but it does show that El Nino is the preferred forecast here as we go up into later summer and fall time here on in through 2023. So anyway, yeah, frontal system rolling through here. Watch out across the higher terrain. Then we're going to flirt with some snowfall again across the Pacific Northwest as we go on in through early and mid next week. We'll watch the systems as they come in one by one. And yeah, so we're going to do this La Nina, this chilly pattern here is classic La Nina signature coming up here. I may do a video coming up here on the Madden-Julian oscillation and talk about how it interacts with El Nino, La Nina. But a lot of times it's hard to actually pick out what's coming downstream because of those indices. So I'll probably continue to educate myself on that. We're still in the early stages, I should say, of study with these, these ocean conditions and how it affects certain regions. And it's a lot of times I find it better just to look at the extended forecast of individual model runs to try to pick out what's coming to us versus looking at extended periods in the Madden-Julian oscillation, for example. But I'll try to explain that better as we go. Maybe I'll do a video of that on that some point coming up here in the future. But anyway, we are going to remain chilly here across the Pacific Northwest through mid-March here coming up. And then who knows what's going to come after that. But this is kind of a classic La Nina signature where you remain cold all the way in through springtime here across the Pacific Northwest. But if you don't like that, stick around till next year, and El Nino is going to be on our doorstep most likely here. So we're probably going to have a little bit different. Maybe we'll have an early spring next year on in through 2024. We'll see how that trends. But anyway, hope you guys are having a good day out there, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, and I'll see you then.